There we go. All right. I'm so glad I realized that I didn't do that because I promised a lot of people who couldn't come the replay. So,
Wendy,
okay.
I'm sure nobody would mind. If you wanted to start from the top for the recording, it's only a couple of minutes. And so you can have all of the information for the people who couldn't be here. I'm certain that nobody would mind.
Okay. Well, I'll just do a quick recap. So if you're listening back on the replay, I forgot to hit record. So, welcome the person I just admitted. So we're going to talk about sleep today. And like I said on the first slide, we talked a little bit about just culturally how we don't typically honor our own rest, our own need for rest. I'll go back to that slide. And some statistics are that the CDC has put out is that in the second part of the 20th century, we as a culture, as a society, get an hour and a half to 2 hours of less sleep a night. And just thinking about the impact that that has on our health. I did a talk last month on chronic inflammation, and not getting enough sleep can actually lead to chronic inflammation, is responsible for a lot of the diseases that shorten our lifespan, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then we also talked a little bit about running on stress energy. We go throughout our day and throughout our lives, just kind of running on that adrenaline, that stress response, and we mistake that for true energy. And so we just kind of really understand the difference between where our energy is coming from, because eventually that's going to run out. Kind of like, think about a car running out of gas. So we really need to honor our need to rest, and we don't typically do that. And I was saying, I think right before I realized that I wasn't recording, is that it's called interoception, is just really listening to the messages that your body sends you. And for some reason, we do it with other areas of our life. Like if we have to go to the bathroom, we go to the bathroom. If we're hungry, we'll eat. But we always push through, not always, but many times if we're tired. And I know this from personal experience, I might just feel like I need to go to bed early, and I may not honor that and just kind of push through and just, oh, I need to get a couple more things done. So just looking at that from a cultural perspective, I think a lot of us are guilty of that. So, what is it costing us to get less sleep? And when I say us, I just mean us, even just as a society. Cardiovascular disease, obesity, decreased lifespan, metabolism, hormones, and cancer. And so, I'm going to just touch upon each one of those areas very briefly. I don't really want to overwhelm everyone tonight with too much information. I just kind of want to lay the groundwork for why it's so important, if you are somebody that struggles with sleep, and maybe you can take something away with what you can do tonight just to kind of work on that if that applies to you. So cardiovascular disease, there's so much really great information, and a lot of what where I got some of this information, if you guys are interested, is a book called Why We Sleep. I actually listed on one of my slides. He's got a really great resource in talking about a lot of these things in more detail, if that's something you're interested in. But in his book, he talks about, he does a lot of different studies, and he cites a lot of different studies that he may not have done, but that others have done. And I think a lot of people that are on this call are probably in their mid 40s or older. But with that being said, some of these studies were actually done with younger, healthy males and females. But especially those of us that are approaching midlife, like the 45-year mark, if we consistently get less than 6 hours of sleep, we have a 200% more likelihood of having a heart attack or a stroke, and dying from those. A lot of times people get heart attacks and they survive them. This is the cardiovascular disease that leads to sudden death. And I know that some of us get more than 6 hours of sleep, but I know a lot of people that say if they get 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, that they feel like that's enough. And it is not enough. And we have a lot of studies that are in this book that actually prove that. But especially those of us that are like in the criminal justice profession or the first responder world, getting that amount of sleep is very typical. And again, it can decrease our lifespan for many reasons. And again, the link between not getting enough sleep and heart disease, there's a lot of different things that we can talk about, but just know the main culprit, the main reason for this is the overactivation of our sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight part of our nervous system, which is governed under the autonomic nervous system. So everybody has heard of the term fight or flight. And just think about how many times throughout the day your nervous system gets activated. And it can be from a whole host of different things. It could just be from, reading a certain email, getting into an argument with a coworker, or anything that you have a response to, a physiological response. Maybe you can notice that your heart rate starts to accelerate, your breathing, maybe you start to shake a little bit. Everyone has a little bit of a different response. Maybe you're clenching in a certain part of your body. Some people twitch, some people shake. So all of those things are an activation of our nervous system. And again, that is very appropriate in certain situations, but we tend to overactivate that nervous system. And that's the kind of activation that we're talking about, that can be the culprit to that cardiovascular disease, because that's keeping us awake at night. We're not getting enough sleep. It's kind of just like this vicious cycle. Next thing the CDC talks about is the link between sleep and diabetes. And when I read a couple of the studies that in the Why We Sleep book, it was kind of blew me away that just one night of short sleep is what he refers to it as, which is 4 to 5 hours of sleep, can impact what your body does when it comes to absorbing blood sugar. So what does that mean? There's the hormone insulin. I think everybody's probably heard of it. When you eat a big meal, or any meal for that matter, and depending on what you've eaten in that particular meal, so some of our meals might be healthier than others, but in particular, like if you've had a meal like lots of carbohydrates, lots of sugar, you need that to be flushed out of your bloodstream. So the insulin, the hormone insulin, will trigger the cells in the body after you've eaten your meal to absorb the blood sugar from the bloodstream. It's what our body naturally does. Our body is set up to naturally take care of itself. But when you don't get enough sleep, the messaging system kind of gets interfered with. And so just one night of having short sleep, so 4 to 5 hours versus maybe 7 or 8 hours of sleep, can interfere with this process. So what will happen is if you eat a meal and you need that blood sugar to be kind of wiped out and get taken out of your bloodstream, the messages, like it's almost like, I think of it like this, like your cells are like putting up the hand, like, nope, not going to do it. Like, I'm too tired. I'm too wore out. You didn't get enough sleep. So we're not going to do that. Like, that's kind of what I'm picturing in my brain when I hear this process. And so chronic sleep deprivation. So think if that's just one night that you can notice a difference in that, what happens over time when we don't get enough sleep. And that's why I've got listed down here, chronic sleep deprivation is recognized as one of the major contributors to type 2 diabetes. And the most, so one of the number one ways that you can help either prevent or even reverse diabetes, this is probably one of the best ways to make sure that you can alleviate that, is by really getting good sleep. And there's other lifestyle factors, of course, too. And then weight gain. This is something that I think many of us can relate to. Definitely me. I, for years, struggled with fluctuating weight, especially I look back now on the years when I was getting really, really awful sleep during a majority of my career. So one of the things that that's important to know is that when you sleep, a lot of times people think that nothing's going on when we sleep. Well, actually, there's a lot more going on than we know. Sleep impacts so many different things. It impacts our metabolically, what is happening in the brain and the body. And so, for instance, because we're talking about weight gain, there's a few hormones that govern our appetite that are really important to note. And again, a lot of these studies that I'm going to reference are a very short amount of time. So again, in one night of just getting 4 hours of sleep, in this particular study that he talked about in the Why We Sleep book, noticing differences of these two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is like your sensation of being full. So you eat a meal, you feel full, you know it's time to stop. So your body and your brain are in communication because of that hormone. Well, when we get short sleep, that hormone gets all jacked up, for lack of a better way of saying it, and the leptin hormone will decrease. So it means it's not doing its job. So it's not signaling your body when you're full. So you might eat more than you probably need to. And on the flip side of that, this other hormone, ghrelin, triggers hunger. And so that gets elevated. Another thing that happens when we don't get enough sleep is endocannabinoids are increased. Like you guys probably have heard a similar term before, because it's the same thing that happens when somebody smokes marijuana. You get the munchies, right? That's what happens when we don't sleep. The endocannabinoids get increased, and it makes us not only want to eat more, but it also impacts the kind of food that we go for, those sugary, high carb things. So again, these may be all things that you're already aware of, but just kind of a good reminder why we need to get good sleep. One of the quotes that I got out of the book that I really liked is, a sleep deprived body will cry famine in the midst of plenty. And then one last thing too, and we won't go into this too much tonight, is that sleep really also makes our gut happy, our microbiome. That's called our enteric nervous system. It's part of our autonomic nervous system, or if you've heard the term microbiome. So everything is interrelated, and your microbiome has so much to do, impacts so many different aspects of your health. And then other hormones, I've talked about this in a previous talk I did, so we won't go too much into depth about this, but I know that this is a concern to many women, and really to many men, especially when we hit the mid 40s or higher, is hormone imbalance. And if we don't get enough sleep, one thing that happens, our body knows how to survive. So we've got some stress hormones. The two most common ones that I put up here are cortisol and adrenaline. The sex hormones, which are progesterone and estrogen, the two main sex hormones, they all have a lot of relevance in different things that they do in our bodies. But what happens is, if we're running on adrenaline and we get that adrenal fatigue, we still need to survive. Our body knows how to take care of itself, and it gets creative, and it knows that we need to survive before we can reproduce, or we can do these other things with these other hormones. So what our body does in high levels of stress is that it takes progesterone and it actually transforms it into the hormone cortisol, which I think is pretty amazing, that our body has the ability and the wisdom to do that, to take care of our survival, but at the expense of a lot of other things. And if anybody has ever had any hormone imbalances or trouble conceiving, infertility issues with your cycle, lots of other things, not saying that it's because you didn't get enough sleep, but if you kind of look back and reverse engineer why that might have been the case, or maybe that's where you're at now, looking at the kind of the link between sleep and some of those hormones. And, we're talking mostly about women here, but men are not immune from this either. I mean, hormone imbalance can be low testosterone levels when we don't get enough sleep. And then inflammation and cancer. One study that I'll just reference on this topic, again, the short amount of sleep that we can get in just one night shows that the immune cells that help to fight off cancer were significantly decreased in these young males after all these other factors were kind of accounted for. And it says here 70% of the natural killer cells in the immune system were suppressed. And that's just with one night of short sleep relative to like a 7 or 8 hour night sleep. And another thing that's important to know too is that if somebody does get diagnosed with cancer, cancer really likes inflammation in the body, and it actually feeds off of inflammation. So all of these things are just really relevant when it comes to sleep. And then what I want to know from everybody here, and you can just maybe put it in the chat, is what do you think the cost is to you personally? And this can just be something that you think about. You can put it in the chat. What could your sleep deprivation be costing you? If you want to think of it in terms of that, just operating on that empty tank, on that adrenaline, is it impacting the way you interact with the people that you love in your life, your friendships, your people that you live in your home with, your extended family, how it's impacting your health, given some of the things that we talked about, your energy level, how you perform at work, and how it might even be impacting things that you spend money on because of your health, going to the doctor, supplements, different things like that. Fatigue. Let's see something in the chat. Amy said she gets more short-tempered and struggles concentrating. Yeah, definitely. All right, just a couple other things as the people come into the chat, is that just a few things that kind of factor in to how our sleep can get impacted is that we kind of live in a culture of just overwhelm. And I picked these pictures because I knew that everybody on this call was a female. And, unfortunately, we as females are still the ones that are doing a majority of the housework. Even though we're out there working full time, it's still a fact that we're still doing a lot more at home than our male counterparts or our partners. So that's just one of the things. But, we expend so much mental energy, so much screen time, so many things that are coming in from all different directions. Like, I know that sometimes I just have to put my electronics away and focus on just doing one thing at a time because we've got so many things coming in all at the same time. This leads to not enough regularity in our days. So not eating meals at a regular time, not sleeping at a regular time, not having a consistent planned out schedule, being more reactive in your day than proactive, like calendar integrity. And then if you throw travel into the mix, that can also create a lot of irregularity. And then one thing that I wanted to talk about, I recently read a book called Burnout. It was recommended to me actually by somebody in my yoga health coaching program. She's one of my accountability partners. And it's human giver syndrome. It's not an official diagnosed syndrome, okay, but it's just a term that the authors in the book use. And I really like it because it captures a lot of what we're talking about tonight. This belief that as women, that we have to just give every drop and ounce of what we have to give, no matter what the cost is to us. Taking care of our families, taking care of things at work, taking care of anybody else but ourselves, and not making ourselves a priority. And I think that's pretty significant to mention because that kind of factors in to this overwhelm. Another thing that can lend itself to not getting a really good night's sleep is eating dinner too late and too much. And this is something that I definitely talk about more. We talk about the habits in the program that I'm launching next year that a few of you are already aware of. But in our society, in our culture, I know I was brought up this way, and only really in the last couple of years have changed this, but we usually eat a larger meal at the end of the day. And this is not in line with the natural rhythm of our body. Our digestive system, our bile production is the highest midday. And if you think about when we used to eat, like back in like the days when we, before we were farm to factory, when people were living on farms and doing a lot of physical labor, think about when we ate the largest meals. And so that has kind of gradually changed over time. And this can really interrupt your digestive process, which can interrupt your sleep. Another thing is using those electronics at night. And again, this is something that I try to be aware of, but I'm definitely not perfect when it comes to this. But I really, really try to impart this on, I have two girls that are 15 and 12, and one of them doesn't sleep really good. And this is something we're really working on as a family. is that when you're looking at your cell phone, especially your cell phone or an iPad, because it's closer to your face than maybe a television, it's a little bit further distance away. But the blue light that's emitted from our electronics interferes with the hormone melatonin. Everybody's probably heard of melatonin. Melatonin production naturally increases in the evening, and that sets us up for a good night's sleep. But that can be impaired and dysregulated when we throw that tech in, and we have that in there that's going to completely dysregulate our melatonin production. And this is a major cause of why people don't sleep well or insomnia. And then my friend Brenda's on here, and I talk about her being a night owl all the time. I'm not trying to call her out, but unfortunately, the people that go to bed later, and I know we're all wired a little bit differently. It's not like everybody's a morning person, or some people, go to bed later than others. And my husband's one of those people. But unfortunately, when we go to bed later, we're not kind of in line or in rhythm with what's called our circadian rhythm. So going to bed after 10 is actually kind of conditioning your body to overproduce cortisol in the evening when you want it to be going down. Elevation of evening cortisol and chronic sleep loss can promote the development of some of the things that we've already talked about: the diabetes, the insulin resistance, and a risk factor for obesity. And then if you average just 6 or 7 hours of sleep a night, the CDC reports the short change can lead to that disease and imbalance. So again, one of the things that I talk about with people who are trying to troubleshoot going to sleep before 10, like people who go to bed at midnight or 11, is just trying to maybe go to bed 10 or 15 minutes earlier, maybe not necessarily trying to go to bed a whole 2 hours or 1 hour earlier at first, and see how that works. And this is one of my absolute favorite quotes. I think I throw it into almost every presentation or talk that I do. But one of the things that we're not so great at is really just listening to what our body is telling us. And I think it's because we're on that go mode all the time, that busy mode. And so one of the things that, if you don't take anything from this free talk, is that just making sure you're paying attention to what your body is telling you, because oftentimes when disease comes or we have an issue, there were signs and symptoms, but we might have just ignored them. And so a lot of times I think this, a lot of our issues have been slowly progressing. They don't just appear one day, but just really making sure to tune in to what your body is telling you. And then the last thing, I think that a lot of us are just living out of sync with our what's called our circadian rhythm. I've talked about this a couple of times already, but it's our body's natural sleep-wake cycle. Basically, what that means is we're supposed to be awake in the daytime hours when it's light out and asleep at night. And that's just really oversimplifying it. There's something called circadian rhythm science now. There's been a lot of research that shows that if we're disconnected from our daily rhythms, and again, that just means obeying the time to be awake and to be asleep, and also when to eat, and the timing of our meals. And that can really, really impact our immune system, inflammation, and disease. So circadian science isn't saying it's just one thing. We are talking about sleep tonight, but it's actually this compounding effect of different lifestyle habits that add up so that you can be in line with what your circadian rhythm is. And then very briefly, I'm going to talk to you about something called Ayurveda, which is what my radical resilience program is kind of based on. It's actually really the same concept of what circadian rhythm science is. It means the knowledge of life. That's the literal translation of it. And it's the sister science to yoga. It's a blueprint pretty much, or kind of a way of, or a protocol of understanding what your body is telling you. So tapping into your body's natural rhythm or natural wisdom, because your bodies naturally want to heal themselves. But a lot of times, because we ignore what it's telling us, we don't allow it to do that. So that's what Ayurveda is based in, always finding the root cause of what's going on and not just looking at the symptom, and then being able to provide the tools to respond. So the relationship between our physiology and then the cycles of nature. And again, that's what the circadian rhythm is just knowing the different times of day that are ideal for certain activities. And again, going back to sleep, really ramping up and doing a lot of work, looking at your electronics in the evening time is actually contradictory to what the circadian rhythm wants us to do. That's wind down time. It's time to spend with family, time to take care of yourself, slow down, things like that. And so very briefly, these are all things that everyone here, I'm sure, knows, but some things to help set you up for a good night's sleep. Reducing caffeine, alcohol, nicotine. And again, I mentioned when to eat dinner, easing your digestive system so that you can sleep better. And then some other activities that you can consider. And one of them we're going to do tonight, we're going to do a yoga nidra practice. But just like maybe taking a warm bath, going for a walk, not doing anything too excessive when it comes to activating the nervous system as far as exercise or movement, listening to music, and something called in Ayurveda, it's called abhyanga or self-massage with certain oils. This is something I'm going to talk about in the free talk next month, but there's a lot of really good research that shows self-massage, just using oil on different parts of your body. You might even just want to start out with your feet, is really good for your immune system. We've got a lot of hormones and a lot of things that are just laying right underneath the surface of our skin, and just kind of moving that around, getting that lymphatic system also moving can be really beneficial to your health and a really great way to help feel grounded and relaxed before you go to sleep. And then, of course, we talked about we're just reducing our activity or electronics, what we're watching, things like that. Okay, so we are going to get into yoga nidra now. So I'm going to talk about this practice very briefly, and then I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time if you have a question or two. But one of the reasons why I chose yoga nidra is because, like I said, we're trying to set ourselves up to ease into our evening before we go to sleep. A lot of times people think that yoga nidra means I'm going to go to sleep. The point of yoga nidra, and it does literally translate into yogic sleep, but you don't necessarily want to try to fall asleep during this practice. The goal is to kind of be in a state of kind of almost like a dream state where you're not completely asleep, but your body and your mind are relaxed but aware, if that makes sense. But with that being said, I don't ever discourage anybody from falling asleep, because if you're falling asleep, it means you need to fall asleep because you're tired. So yoga nidra is just kind of a way, it's a guided relaxation. It's kind of a form of meditation, but it's a little bit different. You're laying in a comfortable position. Typically people, when they're going to do yoga nidra, they lay flat in what's called Shavasana, which is a pose in yoga, which just means you're laying on your back. But you can support yourself with props or pillows as long as you get completely comfortable. That's the most important thing, so that once you start, you're not necessarily going to fidget or adjust or get uncomfortable. Now, if you need to adjust and do something, that's fine. But the idea behind it is to start out and make yourself completely comfortable so that when you start the practice, there's no need to move. I have a couple things that'll make more sense if yoga nidra is new to you about the process. So there's kind of 5 or 6 different steps depending on how we do the yoga nidra. But one of the things that you do in this practice is you set an affirmation. It's called a sankalpa or a resolve. It's just an intention. So I'll give you an example so that when I mention this during the practice, you'll know what it means. You'll think of something that's kind of a positive statement, like I am peaceful, I am full of joy, whatever comes to mind, like whatever hits home for you. And you'll say that to yourself a few times in the beginning and at the end of the practice. We'll go through what's called a rotation of consciousness. This is basically another way of saying it's a body scan, but there's a very systematic way that we do this to help tap into different parts of your brain that will help relax each part of your body as we go through it. Awareness of breath, sense awareness, and different imagery and visualization. And then at the end, we'll come back to that intention. So why do we do Yoga Nidra besides the fact that it's really great for your nervous system and it helps you relax? It can also really help with decreasing stress and anxiety. So we're doing our Yoga Nidra in the evening, but you can practice a Yoga Nidra anytime throughout the day. There's been many times on the weekends I've done it in the morning, and I'll do a lengthier one. Again, it can also improve your sleep if this is something that you're struggling with. It can also help with muscle tension, chronic pain, and again, just overall deactivation of that sympathetic branch of the nervous system. And so before we get started, I just wanted to tell everybody on here about my Radical Resilience program. The program is based on the lifestyle habits that I've briefly mentioned throughout this talk. And my pilot program is starting on January 10th, and it's a year-long program in a very supportive, dynamic group setting. And I'm only allowing, I want the groups to be really small and intentional because we've got to have the right group dynamic. And so I've got only a few spots left for my January pilot. I've got, I think, probably about 5 of the people that are in the program, or 6 of them that are on this call tonight or on this Zoom. But really what it is, it's going through the 10 lifestyle habits of Ayurveda that again are really, really in line with circadian science. And so every week we do 4 cycles through the habits. And every week we meet, we address a habit, and we have a little bit of a worksheet. We have different exercises, we have different themes, we support each other, and we kind of report back to each other. There's also one-on-one coaching as part of the program. And the people that are in my pilot are going to benefit from some added bonuses. I'm going to be offering quarterly retreats. And if you're not able to come in person, I'm going to be offering retreats also on Zoom, just like I'm doing right now. So if you guys are interested in knowing more about the Radical Resilience program, you can go to my website, which I have up here. You can send me an email, which is wendy@bluelineyoga.com. Or if you go to the website, you can get to me that way. Typically what I like to do if people are interested in the program, it's kind of for a few different reasons. It's for you to know if this program is right for you, and for me to also know if it's right for you, because I don't want somebody to sign up if it's not the right fit. So if you're interested in having a conversation, let me know. And we're going to get started finally, but I do want to tell you that on December 21st, I am going to do another free talk. It's called Winter Calm. We are going to do a restorative yoga practice. I'm going to actually do this one in person. I have a little yoga retreat in Augusta, Kansas. And so if you can't make it in person, I think I'm going to probably have about 10 people. We're going to do it on Zoom too. We're going to start out with a little bit of a free talk about setting yourself up for winter and talking about Abhyanga and some of the Ayurvedic lifestyle habits that can really help get you through the winter time. So if you guys are interested, I'll have more information on that. So I see there's a few things in the chat. Is there anything, Kim? I think
Wendy, there was a question about when you were talking about blue light, and I'm going back up to the question now. It was Antonia. Do you think the blue light glasses are helpful? Was her question?
You know, I'm going to get some. I have heard, so I'm in this 2-year yoga health coaching program, and several people have said that they are really successful with what they've noticed. People who are struggling with sleep. So I don't know firsthand, but I think I'm going to give it a try.
You've had several people drop in to comment on what sleep deprivation, how that impacts them negatively. So if you want to go back later and read through those comments.
Okay.
But this is really interesting. I mean, it's really across the board. short-tempered, struggle concentrating, terrible focus, less concentration, weight gain, high cortisol levels, motivation suffers, less motivation to exercise, less patient, struggle with weight, hormone imbalance. So yeah, really across the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And whoever put less motivation to exercise, that's not something I mentioned, but there's a reason for that. And so in one of the studies that I talked about in that Why We Sleep book, which again, really great book, I highly recommend it, is that because that lack of energy makes us, it makes us not want to move our body. And there's a lot of physiological things that are going on. And so that's why, bringing all of these lifestyle habits together, because they all feed off of each other, right? So, and one of the things that we do too, because it can sound kind of overwhelming to, oh my gosh, I need to exercise, I need to stop eating a certain way, I need to sleep. And it can make people really just kind of shut down and be like, you know what, forget it. It's too much. One of the things that I really like about the way this program is set up, that we're going to start in January, is that we go through things every week in small incremental change. And that's kind of the whole philosophy, because that's what's worked for me. I went for years trying to do too much at once, and I would fizzle out after a short amount of time. And so that is why we do this over a year, is because we do it slow, we do it in a supportive environment, and we build on one thing at a time. And after the first cycle, we go through it again at a deeper level. We take it, we kind of attack it from a different angle. And so all of the things that everybody's mentioning, very, very common. All of us have kind of different stories, different issues, but it all leads us to the same place. So we all have that in common. So thanks, Kim, for telling me that about the chat.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell everybody that Brenda dropped your website address into the chat, and I dropped your email address into the chat. So if you guys want to grab those out of the chat. And also Shannon of the North said she definitely needs that with the dark of winter in Alaska. I don't know if you're talking about the winter calm talk, but that's funny. Shannon of the North.
I love that. Shannon of the North. Okay. I love it. Okay. Well, if nobody has any questions, why don't we get started with the practice? I'll be sending out an email about the winter calm, so don't worry about that. So if you're not already in a comfortable position, I'm going to give you guys a minute or so, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen because we don't need that anymore. Cool.
And we should be lying down. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna instruct you guys. So if you guys, if it's uncomfortable to lay down, you can sit comfortably in a chair, but you want to feel supported. You want your body to be supported. You don't want to be sitting up in a seated position. Like perhaps if you're somebody who meditates, you want to either be laying on the ground, and if you've got like pillows and blankets, if you want to prop like a blanket or a pillow underneath your knees, if it bothers your low back, for your legs to be straight, that's an idea. Making sure that your neck and your head are supported, that's probably the most important thing. You don't necessarily want to have like a big pillow underneath your head so that you're cranked up, but you do want to feel supported with the neck and the shoulders. So just take another moment. So some things, and I'm going to probably talk much more about this the next time, to also help set you up for yoga nidra or even just a good night's sleep, is if anybody has like essential oil like lavender or vetiver or really good oils in the evening time to help kind of promote a good sleep and calm and easefulness. All right, I am gonna just give you guys about maybe 20 more seconds. And so I'm gonna be reading from a book. So if you do hear pages, that's probably, hopefully, the only noise that you're going to hear on my end, except for me talking. So as you prepare for Yoga Nidra, lying down in a comfortable position or Shavasana, corpse pose, just really making yourself as comfortable as possible. Keeping your feet apart, just letting them kind of flop sideways, trying not to grip or hold on or tense your muscles in any way. Your arms are slightly away from your body with the palms of your hand facing up. And just one last opportunity to adjust your clothing, your props, blankets, anything that you might be using, so that you can practice Yoga Nidra without moving and without physical discomfort. Please close your eyes and keep them closed. The practice of Yoga Nidra is the act of hearing and the act of feeling. These are the only important factors. In Yoga Nidra, you function on the level of awareness, plus the level of listening. Become aware of sounds in the distance. Become aware of the most distant sounds that you can hear. Let your sense of hearing operate like a radar beam, searching out distant sounds and following them for a few seconds. Moving your attention from sound to sound without attempting to identify the source. Gradually bring your attention to closer sounds, to sounds outside of the room that you're in, and then to sounds that are inside of the room that you're in. Now develop your awareness of the room that you're in. Without opening your eyes, visualize the four walls, the ceiling, the floor, your body lying on the floor. See your body lying on the floor. Become aware of the existence of your physical body lying on the floor. Total awareness of your body lying in perfect stillness. Develop your awareness of all the physical meeting points between your body and the floor. Become aware of the natural breath. Become aware of the deep, natural, spontaneous breath. Do not concentrate, for this will interfere with the natural process. Just keep listening. Know that you are breathing. The practice of Yoga Nidra begins now. Say mentally to yourself, I am going to practice Yoga Nidra. I am going to practice Yoga Nidra. Now it is time to make your resolve or your sankalpa, your intention, a short positive statement. Please state your resolve clearly with feeling and awareness 3 times to yourself. Rotate your consciousness through the different centers of the body. As quickly as possible, the awareness should jump from point to point. Repeat mentally the name of each part and simultaneously become aware of that part. The practice always begins with the right hand. Right hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, palm of the hand, back of the hand, wrist, lower arm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, waist, hip, right thigh, knee, calf muscle, ankle, heel, sole, top of the foot, right big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Left hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, palm of the hand, back of the hand, wrist, lower arm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, waist, hip, left thigh, knee, calf muscle, ankle, heel, sole, top of the foot, left big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Right shoulder, left shoulder, right shoulder blade, left shoulder blade, right buttock, left buttock, the spine and the whole of the back together. Top of the head, forehead, right eyebrow, left eyebrow, the eyebrow center, right eyelid, left eyelid, right eye, left eye, right ear, right cheek, left cheek, nose, tip of the nose, right nostril, left nostril, upper lip, lower lip, chin, jaw, throat, right collarbone, left collarbone, right chest, left chest, middle of the chest, navel, abdomen, lower abdomen, whole of the right leg, whole of the left leg, both legs together, whole of the right arm, whole of the left arm, both arms together, whole of the back, whole of the front, the whole head together, legs, arms, back, front, head, the whole of the body together. The whole of the body together. Develop awareness of the whole body and become aware of the space occupied by the body. Become aware of the body and the space. Body and space. Become aware of the whole body and the floor, and the whole body in relation to the floor. And at the same time, become aware of the meeting points of the body and the floor. These are very subtle physical points between body and the floor. Feel the meeting points between the back of your head and the floor. Shoulder blades and the floor, the elbows and the floor, the back of the hands and the floor, the calves and the floor, the heels and the floor. Awareness of all the meeting points between the body and the floor, the sensation of all points simultaneously, evenly. Go on feeling these points clearly and distinctly. Switch your attention to the eyelids. Feel the narrow line of meeting between the upper and lower eyelids. Feel the sharp points where they meet. Intensify your awareness between the eyelids. And then the lips. Center your attention on the line between the lips, the space between the lips. Draw your attention to the natural in and out breath. Feel the breath moving along the passage between the navel and the throat. On inhalation, it rises from the navel to the throat. On exhalation, it descends from the throat to the navel. Be completely aware of your respiration, navel to throat, throat to navel. Do not try to force your breath, just awareness. Maintain your awareness of your breath. Total awareness of your breath. Breathing is slow and relaxed. Awareness of sensation. Heaviness. Awaken the feeling of heaviness in the body. The feeling of heaviness. Become aware of heaviness in every single part of the body. You are feeling so heavy that you're sinking into the floor. Awareness of heaviness, awareness of heaviness. Lightness. Awaken the feeling of lightness in the body. Awaken the feeling of lightness. A sensation of lightness and weightlessness in all parts of the body. Your body feels so light that it seems to be floating away from the floor. Awareness of lightness. Cold. The experience of cold. Awaken the experience of bitter cold in the body. Imagine you're walking on a cold floor in winter. Your feet feel very cold. You feel cold all over. Awareness of coldness, awareness of coldness. Heat. Awaken the sensation of heat in the body. Awaken the experience of heat. The whole body is hot. Recollect the feeling of heat in summer when you are out in the sun with no shade. Heat is all around your body. Awareness of heat. Withdraw your mind and concentrate on the space that's in front of your closed eyes. Imagine before you a transparent screen through which you can see infinite space, a space that extends as far as the eyes can see. Concentrate on this dark space and become aware of any phenomena that manifests within it. Whether you see in the manifesting state of your mind, continue your awareness of this space, but do not become involved. Practice detached awareness only. Visualization. Imagine that it is very early morning. It's still dark and you're walking through hills, climbing up towards some mountains. You are alone. You are walking east, and if you look back, you can see a crescent-shaped moon low in the sky. Soon, the sun will rise over the mountains ahead. Far below in a valley, the lights of a small town twinkle through an early morning mist. The track twists back and forth on the side of a steep slope. It winds between huge boulders and over bridges suspended across deep chasms. A gap between two hills gives a glimpse of a huge snow-covered mountain ahead. The pale sky behind it heralds the dawn. You climb up through the snow. It makes a crunching sound as you break the surface and sink in. A glacier lies across your path. There are creaks and groans of moving ice as you quickly move across. Near the top of the mountain, it becomes very cold. Winds howl around your body and snatch your clothes. Snow and ice cling to your shoes. You reach the top and a magnificent scene reveals itself before your eyes. To the east, a vast range of snow-covered peaks and dark valleys. To the west, hills leading to rolling plains and the sea. Intensify your imagination and visualize this scene. See the sun rise like a golden ball in the east, scattering rays of golden light off snow that dazzles your eyes. Sweep your eyes around the sky. To the west, it is still gray. Above you, blue. In the east, a delicate pink as it nears the sun. Watch the sunlight strike the tops of mountains and move down their sides. Deep valleys emerge as the shadows retreat. You sit with legs crossed and contemplate this grand scene, the dawn of a new day. Let yourself experience this for some time. Let your mind flow freely with this experience. Bring your awareness to the dark space that you see in front of your closed eyes. This space can be visualized in front of the forehead. So if you want to explore it a little, you can shift your gaze slightly up, but do not strain. Watch the darkness that you see before you very carefully with detachment. Rest your mind in this warm and friendly darkness. If thoughts occur, let them come and go, but continue watching the dark space. Continue this with detached awareness. Now remember your resolve, your sankalpa, your intention. Repeat the same resolve that you made at the beginning of the practice in the same words with the same attitude. Repeat your resolve now 3 times clearly with feeling and emphasis to yourself. Become aware of your breathing. Become aware of your natural breathing. Awareness of breathing and awareness of relaxation. Develop awareness of your physical existence. Become aware of your arms, your legs, and your body lying on the floor. Become aware of meeting points between your body and the floor, and developing awareness of the room, the walls, the ceiling, noises that are in the room, and noises that are outside of the room. Take your mind out, become completely external. Lie quietly for a few moments and keep your eyes closed. Start moving your body slowly, stretching. Take your time. Do not hurry this process. And only when you're ready, and if you're ready, you can sit up slowly, open your eyes. The practice of Yoga Nidra is now complete. So just slowly waking yourself back up, for lack of a better way of saying that, unless you've already fallen asleep. I don't expect that people are going to really feel like talking very much, which is really common. So I just kind of want to say I'm going to be here for a few minutes. If you guys do have any questions, I really appreciate you guys showing up tonight. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Kim. Julie, good night. Elizabeth. Antonia. Bye, Amy. Dee Dee, maybe you'll have to listen back when you have some quiet time. Shannon and Barb, thank you. Well, thanks, Glenda and the other Shannon. Dee Dee. Yeah, this is one of my favorites. I love the mountain visualization. You guys have a really good night. If you have any questions, shoot me an email.